I am a time-traveling woman. I come from the year 2039. I just turned 40 years old. Wow, a lot has happened since 2019. But the first thing I'll say is that Jack Anderson has become one of the lead city planners, and he revolutionized Victoria. Wow, coming back to 2019 is pretty strange. I think the biggest thing that strikes me immediately is just how loud the city is. Wow, I mean, you could just kind of get used to the buzzing and the hum of the city, but let me tell you, it's a lot quieter. One of the most important things that we saw was that the changes that came over the last 2 decades since 2019 were that it was just as much structural as it was social changes, just as much cultural as it was economic changes and technological advancements. And most people spend their time talking about the technological aspects of it. So I'm going to focus mostly on the social aspects of what these 2 decades of transformation looked like. So I'll start from the beginning. For decades, the environmental movement put pressure on governments and politicians and corporations. For years and years, they striked, they wrote letters, they did sit-ins, they did chants, they did die-ins, they had meetings just like this. And they were both inspiring, but also people felt a bit burnt out, like, will things really change? Is all this work worth it when it just feels like things are getting worse and worse? Well, let me tell you, the past 20 years, now it's 2039 from when I'm from, it was pretty intense. The droughts did come, the famine did come, the storms came, we had diseases, and it was really scary. But it was also some of the most exciting, most beautiful, most interesting time in human history. So we'll start from 2018. We had some big tipping points. That IPCC report came out, and that put a lot of pressure on people to start waking up and start acting. And then the youth climate strike movement started also in 2018 with Greta Thunberg, this Swedish girl who was 15 years old at the time. She started sitting outside the Swedish parliament, demanding that the government start listening to what the scientists were saying. And a few months later, on March 15th in 2019, over 1,000 communities were striking, young people all over the world standing up. In over 105 countries around the world, youth striked on March 15th, and it was an incredible day. I mean, we had no idea what we were doing. A lot of us were standing up doing this community organizing activist stuff for the first time ever. I remember when it was 2019, yeah. I went to my first ever protest in January, and then 6 weeks later, I was organizing and emceeing my first ever protest. So it was really an exciting time. It was scary. A lot of us felt a mix of terror and boldness and desperation and a feeling of profound love. That's where a lot of us were coming from, was this deep-seated feeling of love and devotion to trying to do the best we could do to get people to wake up and start acting and thinking seriously and start actually being caretakers of the land and the water and the air. And we struggled to find clarity and coherence as young people in this really confusing world, growing up in the middle of a technological revolution that is currently happening in the 2019 where you're sitting. And it was really strange growing up in this mechanized world, finding clarity and like what is even the feeling of community and real connection. Not many of us knew that because it just didn't really exist in the early 21st century. So it was a strange time. But a lot of what this movement was about was, yes, raising awareness, yes, getting messages communicated to politicians and corporations, but a lot of it also was remembering who we are in relationship with nature. What does it mean when we talk about the environment? The environment. What we're talking about when we're talking about the environment is the feeling when you're walking through an old-growth forest. And you're looking at the stars, on a cliff over the ocean, and you are part of something vast and extraordinary and enchanting. And it's mesmerizing. And that's what we're fighting for. It took a lot of strength to struggle in this fight for climate justice, environmental justice. We spent a lot of time in nature to get inspiration and remember what it is we're fighting for, to foster that supreme sensation of wonder and love and real, pure love when you walk amid those trees and feel that connection. And we cried, and we grieved, and we organized. Young people always played a big role in social movements. Young people are ready to have fresh vision, to create space for new ideas, and to create space for culture to give rise around those new ideas. So this youth strike movement was phenomenal. People started to see that we needed a new story for humanity. We needed to start questioning every aspect of our lives, bring into question our daily habits, how we structure our cities, how we structure our communities. There were loads of wonderful talks just like this one tonight. And we wanted to find out where the history of these climate strikes came from. Why is it all happening? How did we get to where we are today when people like me and my friends back there, I'm 21, they're also in their early 20s. Why do we need to ask ourselves the question, is it appropriate to have children? Should I bring a child into this world? So we wanted to find out why that's happening for us. These failing governance structures. Why are our politicians not taking this seriously? Why is it so difficult to make radical things like these plans happen? So we did a reinvestigation of history. And it looked a little bit like this. For millennia, for our ancient human history, humans lived in harmony with the earth. We were beings of nature too. We understood our place within the web of life. And in our relatively recent human history, we've built all these cities and these buildings and our global food system, all in this tiny little millisecond, little hair strand of our human history. And this was interesting because it shared a lot of information about who we are and where we come from. And it gave us a lot of hope because we were able to see that we have this ancient history of working with the natural systems of the earth. We are able to foster that connection. But because of these cities, we lost our sense of connection with the earth. We can no longer touch it because all of this cement is suffocating the earth. So what we need to do is bring nature into our cities, which is why it's so exciting to hear all these amazing presentations. We can learn again what it is to be a human. We can learn about closed-circuit systems, composting. We can learn again that we are part of this amazing web of life. We can grow our own food, and it will nourish us in ways that we can barely even comprehend when we're eating all this strange food that is shipped all the way from across the world. We'll drink water that we captured, and we know where that water comes from. It was also a really interesting movement because it was not just about technological advancements and culture change, but it was also a big part of the women's liberation movement. For far too long, the fear of the feminine dominated in these strange, broken, patriarchal governance structures. But we started to see more and more that the strength and the wisdom and the power of the woman could be unleashed. And there was no more fear of the feminine. And this was very pivotal. We thought we were free in the early 20th century, but things really changed. And we looked to the woman for wisdom and strength and power and perseverance in these really horrifying decades, this really crazy time we lived in. And it was also a movement to decolonize and build real relationships with the Indigenous peoples. We look to them to help us see what it is to actually have a real relationship with the land, to care for the water and the earth. And they helped us to rebuild our ecosystems. Most of the jobs that came were in setting up these phenomenal communities that you heard about tonight, and also restoring ecosystems. It was common knowledge to know the names of all the native plants in Victoria, all the Lekwungen names too. And now our cities are so much healthier. We have affordable housing, alternative living situations, tiny homes. These bioblocks were hugely subsidized, and most houses were made out of them. And again, like I said, Jack Anderson was one of the city planners in Victoria, and it revolutionized everything. Now cities all over the world look to Victoria. Did you hear about that little city in Canada on that island? Wow, what they're doing over there, amazing. The water runs clear. We can drink right from the streams. We have more fulfilling jobs. We find real meaning and purpose. We have an energy democracy. The corporations lost their hold on the people, and now we own all our own energy. Small community-owned grids. Geothermal has been hugely subsidized too, and now we use the tides, the sun, and the wind, and all the gifts of Mother Earth. We no longer burn everything up. And we've accommodated thousands and thousands of refugees, climate refugees, and our cities are vibrant and full of life. The city is now a network of little small self-sustaining villages surrounded by forest, and there's free electric public transit that connects you with all the different sub-communities within the city. So you still have that city feel, but you have a real community, and we are reconnecting with nature. We're reconnecting with the natural world. We understand who we are in relation with the web of life. And this was fundamental, incredibly important. And all our Indigenous teachers were telling us that the most important thing we do now in this climate crisis is to reconcile our relationship with the natural world. We will live in a world defined by scarcity, we will live in a world defined by abundance, not by scarcity. We lived in a world not ruled by fear, hate, or apathy, but ruled by love, honor, and respect. We thank the earth, and the earth thanks us. Thank you.